Okay, all in favour for buying more toys for the church crash? Stick your finger in your ear. It's anonymous. Okay, what's next?
I know, it's Christmas.
Woohoo! Jingle bell, Batman smells, na 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 na.
I love celebrating Santa's birthday. Oh, do we have an update from Chris?
Yes, we do actually.
I remember Chris, he's a Jeffugee.
No, silly, he works with the Jeffugees. Ha, you said Jeffugee.
Let's just see the video.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm very well. I understand you've just returned from working in the camp today. Have you anything that you want to share with us from our last video conference?
Sure, I've just been thinking about how you said you want to hear stories about some encounters with the people. And the one I was thinking about today is, well, we have spent a lot of time feeding the refugees and helping to clothe the refugees. But there's one particular experience that I've been thinking about this week when the refugees fed me. And I want to share about that just a bit. This was before the current camp was open and things were a bit more disorganized. And we had this makeshift camp set up by the border with Slovenia. And they closed that border. Everything was being rerouted a different direction. All of the refugees had been let through when suddenly 28 more people showed up. And at this point, we were just cleaning the camp up. It took 2 days to tear that camp down and then move to another location. But they got to the border, and at first they were told they could not cross. And some of the women were particularly yelling and just crying, not yelling in anger, but just upset because they'd been promised that they could get through, and some of their family was waiting on the other side. But eventually, after some negotiating, the police said, okay, we will let them through, but they have to wait 5 hours. So during that time, I sat down with this group of people and we began to talk. I asked them, do you need anything? Do you need any water? They had water with them. They said, no, we're fine. Do you need any food? Well, they had managed to have some food with them at the time. They said, actually, we have a lot of food. We're okay. I said, well, do you need anything at all? One of them said, I just want a home. And so we just sat down and we just talked. And after a while, I'd been up and down helping to clean things up in the camp, and at this point it was still hot. It's cold now, but it was really hot at that time, and I was thirsty, hungry, had missed lunch. And as I sat down and was talking with them, they started getting their bags out and bringing out the food, and they started passing food to me as well as to each other, and they started to eat. And one thing I understood about their culture, their Syrian people, is that in that culture, very much like the culture that Jesus lived in, to be invited to sit down and eat with you is the ultimate sign of acceptance. And of course, if I'd said no, that would be the ultimate sign of rejection. So I took the food, and I was honored just to be able to sit down with them. And as I sat down with them, there was just this overwhelming realization of something I knew in my head, but in my heart, of the fact that these are just people like you and me, people who are struggling and suffering. We sat down, talked together, and eventually they were allowed through the border. But one of the men in the group, it was like various families, there were babies, mothers, children, and one of the men in the group that I talked to a lot, he found me on Facebook, and he contacted me and said a few days ago, we've arrived in Vienna. And then later on, he contacted me and he told me they'd reached their final destination that they were aiming to go to, and there was family there. And we began to talk, and I asked him, there was a big Muslim holiday happening the next day, and I asked him, do you celebrate that day? And I actually kind of knew that he didn't, but it was a way of trying to bring up the subject of faith. And he said to me, no, I don't celebrate that day, I'm a Christian. And I told him, I said, actually, I kind of had a feeling that you were. There was just something about you and all of your family. I just kind of knew. And he said, I'll tell you something. I know you're a Christian too. He said, you can tell the difference. You can see the difference. He and I stayed in touch, and they're doing really, really well. And I was encouraged by that moment, but I was also challenged because I was thinking about what he said. You can tell the difference. The challenge to me is, may God help me to live in such a way that people really can always tell the difference. And I think that's a challenge for all of us this morning too.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Chris. and we'll be continuing to pray for you and Karen and your work with the refugees. God bless
Thank you very much. God bless you.
Bye.
Wow, isn't it awesome how Chris shows love to the refugees?
I show love to my brother when I don't hit him on his head.
I don't think that's the same thing. I'm confused about Pastor's voice again.
That's not important. What's important is we continue to show love to the refugees by raising money for clothes.
Pastor Michael, how you getting on with that £1,000,000 you're going to raise?
I'm nearly there. I have 19p. I think we're going to need a lot more help from the people in our church.
Yeah, me too. Let's keep encouraging people to give.
To the buckets!
Yay, the bucket for the clothes on it.
And don't forget to pray for the the refugees. They need a lot of prayer.
Let's do that now.